The contrast between Canada and Australia often reveals itself quietly at first, in moments that feel ordinary on the surface but carry very different cultural rhythms underneath. Both societies are outwardly friendly, English-speaking, and shaped by vast landscapes, yet the emotional temperature of daily life moves in noticeably different directions. What appears similar from afar begins to separate once everyday behaviours, social expectations, and unspoken norms come into focus. In Canada, public spaces tend to feel carefully moderated. Interactions are polite, measured, and often softened by an instinct to avoid friction. Conversations unfold with a certain restraint, as if personal boundaries are always gently but firmly present. In Australia, the atmosphere usually feels more relaxed and informal from the start. Voices carry more openly, humour appears faster, and social distance closes sooner. The same casual exchange that feels warm in Australia might feel unexpectedly direct in a Canadian setting. These differences become clearer in how each culture handles friendliness. In Canada, friendliness is often expressed through consistency and reliability rather than intensity. Small courtesies, quiet consideration, and respect for personal space form the backbone of social trust. Australians, by contrast, frequently communicate warmth through openness and ease. Banter, teasing, and informal language play a central role in building connection, even among people who have just met. Underlying these habits are distinct cultural values shaped by geography and history. Canadian society places strong emphasis on coexistence and balance, navigating diversity through caution and consensus. There is a cultural preference for stability and predictability, reflected in social systems and everyday routines. Australia, influenced by its climate and frontier identity, often prioritizes adaptability and resilience. Life feels more oriented toward the present moment, with a greater tolerance for uncertainty and improvisation. Workplace behavior mirrors these patterns. In Canada, professionalism is often associated with structure, planning, and diplomacy. Hierarchies exist, but they are typically understated and formal communication remains important. In Australia, professional environments tend to flatten more quickly. Authority is acknowledged, but informality is common, and competence is often demonstrated through action rather than titles or protocol. Even the pace of life carries a subtle divergence. Canadian cities often feel orderly and deliberate, with routines built around seasons and long-term planning. Australian life, while equally busy, tends to feel looser and less constrained by rigid schedules. Time is treated more flexibly, and social life frequently blends into work and public spaces. These contrasts do not signal superiority or deficiency in either culture. Instead, they reveal different approaches to navigating community, identity, and daily existence. What seems natural in one country can feel unexpectedly unfamiliar in the other, not because of dramatic differences, but because of the quiet rules guiding how people relate to one another. These quiet rules become especially visible in how conflict and disagreement are managed. In Canada, discomfort is often smoothed over through indirect language and careful phrasing. Disagreement tends to be framed softly, with emphasis on compromise and mutual understanding. The goal is frequently to preserve harmony, even if that means leaving some tension unresolved beneath the surface. In Australia, disagreement is more likely to be addressed openly. Directness is not automatically read as hostility, and expressing a clear opinion can be seen as a sign of honesty rather than confrontation. Social humour further highlights the divide. Canadian humour often leans towards subtlety, self-deprecation, and situational irony. It is used carefully, especially with unfamiliar people, to avoid misunderstanding. Australian humour, by contrast, is frequently bold and irreverent. Teasing plays a central role in social bonding, and being the target of light mockery can signal acceptance rather than exclusion. What feels playful and inclusive in Australia may initially feel abrupt or overly familiar to Canadians. Attitudes toward rules and structure also differ. Canada tends to emphasize systems, procedures, and shared expectations. Rules are generally followed not just out of obligation, but out of a belief that order protects fairness. Australians are often more comfortable bending rules when practicality calls for it. There is a cultural admiration for problem-solving that bypasses bureaucracy, As long as the outcome feels reasonable and fair, nature and environment shape emotional life in distinct ways as well. Canada's long winters encourage indoor routines, planning, and emotional reserve. Social life often organises itself around schedules and enclosed spaces. Australia's climate allows for a more outward-facing lifestyle. Beaches, parks, and open-air gatherings blur the line between private and public life, reinforcing a sense of casual connection and physical ease. These patterns influence identity at a deeper level. Canadian culture frequently frames identity through collective responsibility and social cohesion. There is comfort in predictability and mutual accommodation. Australian culture places stronger emphasis on personal independence and adaptability, celebrating the ability to navigate life with confidence and humour. Neither approach is absolute, but each leaves a clear imprint on how people move through everyday situations. As these differences accumulate, they begin to shape expectations without being consciously noticed. What feels respectful, friendly, or efficient in one country can quietly misalign with the instincts of the other. The contrast is not dramatic, but it is persistent, woven into tone, timing, and the unspoken assumptions that guide daily interactions. In more intimate settings, the contrasts deepen. Canadians often communicate care through attentiveness and subtle gestures, checking in, remembering small details, and respecting personal rhythm. Emotional expression is often measured, as overt intensity can feel uncomfortable or intrusive. Australians, conversely, may show care through inclusion and shared experience, inviting someone into social spaces, offering humour, or taking practical action. The same level of attention appears more casual, more intertwined with everyday life, rather than formally expressed. Friendship formation also reflects these cultural priorities. Canadian friendships tend to develop slowly, grounded in reliability and repeated interaction. Trust is earned through consistency over time, and social boundaries are observed with care. Australians often form bonds more quickly, with openness and shared experiences acting as accelerants. Social rituals, barbecues, sports, weekend outings function as informal accelerators of intimacy, creating trust through participation rather than measured observation. These dynamics extend into family life and social gatherings. Canadians may schedule family time with consideration, often planning in advance to accommodate everyone's needs. Even informal gatherings tend to follow unspoken structures, ensuring comfort and inclusion. Australians frequently approach family and friends with improvisation, valuing spontaneity and adaptability. Meals, outings, or celebrations are often open-ended, flexible, and infused with humour, reflecting a collective comfort with unpredictability. Public behaviour mirrors these private patterns. In Canada, people navigate public spaces with attentiveness to social norms, keeping noise levels moderate, queuing patiently, and interacting with strangers in restrained, courteous ways. In Australia, the public environment is generally more relaxed. Laughter, casual conversation, and physical openness are common even among strangers. This does not indicate rudeness, but rather a different cultural calibration of personal space, attention, and social warmth. Even subtle gestures, eye contact, body language, tone carry differing weights. Canadians tend to interpret prolonged eye contact or abrupt gestures as potential discomfort, whereas Australians often use these same cues to convey engagement or friendliness. What feels like careful negotiation in Canada translates into ease and informality in Australia, shaping the emotional climate of daily life. These differences accumulate to influence worldview and perception. Canadians often experience the world through lenses of caution, consideration, and shared responsibility. Australians, while equally community-minded, interpret experiences through adaptability, humour, and resilience. The emotional texture of life, the way time, space, and social connection are experienced shifts subtly but consistently between the two cultures. Each society builds a framework for living that prioritizes certain types of social fluidity, emotional regulation, and relational rhythm, offering a distinct, immersive experience of community and identity. Canada's and Australia's cultural differences, though often understated, reveal how deeply geography, history, and climate shape human interaction. They demonstrate that everyday life is more than routines and rules. It is a reflection of collective values, emotional climate, and social expectations. quietly guiding how people navigate the world and one another. The contrasts are not just practical. They are felt in tone, timing, and texture, shaping the unspoken rhythm of life in ways that are only truly noticed by those moving between them.